Hello and welcome everybody. Please join us as we're just starting. Hello, hello. Today's topic is being alone together. Being alone together. I'm just typing it in for our Facebook friends. And we are about to start. Okay, welcome everybody. As you're logging on and as we're starting to see you, would you let me know where you're logging in from? Where you can reply to all panelists if you're on our Zoom call. So where are you calling in from? Where do we have the pleasure of you joining us from? Are you on the East Coast, West Coast, Europe, Africa, Asia, Windsor in the UK, the Bay Area, a range of places. Wonderful. Okay. Oh, I see a friend's name who's joining. Hello there. So who are we and what is this? This is 20-minute daily strategies for working remote. We are all working remote right now. And we have some people who know a little bit about working remote because we are coaches. We have been working remote, but we also coach leaders on working with remote teams. And today specifically, we have Alex Jack. Hello, Alex.
Hi, Sonia. Hi, everybody.
Alex is one of our coaches, and you can always already tell something about Alex by the awesome collection of guitars right behind him, which I'm on a number of Zoom calls with Alex, and I love seeing that. It just reminds me of his love for music. So today with Alex, we're talking about being alone, but together. When you're with other people, but what are we doing when we're by ourselves? So today we have Alex to tell us a little bit about this. Alex will be talking for about 20 minutes and then we'll take Q&A after. So please enjoy. Hello, Alex. We're delighted to have you.
Well, hi, Sonia, and thank you so much for this opportunity and thank you for having me. Today we are actually going to talk about being alone together, the three S's, your sanity, your survival, and your productivity. Or as I like to say, why living with someone is not quite the same as being confined with them. Okay, so basically this is where we are now, about 3 weeks in, 5 weeks for others. We've been working remotely from home, confined in the same roof, in the same living space with our spouse or with our partner. And, for those of us, like I said, who've been married, we've been living together, but we're discovering that this living together is a different kind of living together because, well, we no longer have the luxury of the 8-hour workday, which kind of served as a buffer, whether we knew it or not, for our relationship. So that buffer is now completely gone, and we are in the same place 24/7. Now, if that wasn't bad enough, add to that the backdrop of stress, of the cabin fever, of the anxiety, of trying to be productive at the same level as you were when you were, going to work. And then there's that nagging sound of, I just wish everything could get back to normal. Well, so this is just not, and the other difference is that you can go on a vacation or maybe go on a weekend getaway. The difference with that is that there you were able to choose, the time and the space that you would spend together these 24 hours. But like you said, this is no longer the case. So now all that anxiety and doom and being in a confined space, it kind of brings to mind a certain image. I think of Jack and Rose, but somehow I think that we are not, that far gone. Yes, there is a level of anxiety, maybe a sense of dread, but and even if you don't have it, one thing is perfectly sure is that we have changed the way we live, the way we do things, and because of that, we change. One of the things that comes along with it is tension, which can lead to irritability, and before you know it, you'll have conflicts. Now, I'm not saying that this means that we don't love our partners, but if we're not mindful about the way we go about things in these confined spaces, it won't be long before, Yeah. So if anything, it's more clear than ever before that for our survival, we need not toilet paper, not more groceries, but we need to be able to communicate. It's communicate, communicate, communicate. Uh, sorry, I'm still working on my slides. So why communicate? Because, well, we're humans and we are not telepaths. So we cannot tell what the other person is thinking or what the other person is feeling. So we have to communicate this. Now, when I say communication, I don't mean that you have to, sitting down 24 hours a day and, talking every minute of the day or, sharing everything that comes to mind. But what I am talking about is that you have a time and a space, a safe space where you can sit and where you can voice your concerns to one another, and where they can be heard. So when you do this, it's pretty important that you factor in a specific time where you can sit and don't try to be multitasking and having your phones. Put everything aside and just be present in that moment with your spouse and be honest and be vulnerable. Because remember, it's not that everybody can handle this situation. And if you are the one that is, well, you've got this under control, just remember that the other person is not you. So maybe they may be dealing with this differently. And it's important that you are aware of that and don't just be dismissive of, how the other person is feeling. For instance, like my wife and I, what we did, we had a conversation when this started. And in that conversation, we expressed how we were going to go forward with things like this, how we felt. And we also made an assessment as to what it was that each of us needed for our own sanity, for our own productivity, for our own sanity. And what that did, because we clarified our expectations, we kind of knew what it was that the other needed. So again, when you do this, it is important that you listen, okay? Let the other person talk. If they need to vent or express their emotion, let them do that. Don't try to interrupt. Because again, while you are a team, you are a unit, you are a partnership, it is still made up of two separate individuals. And you run on your own clocks, on your own times, your own schedules. You have your own urges, your own things that you need to move forward. So what do we need moving forward? Well, for our productivity, again, we have individuality in space, and we need to have planning. When I say individuality in space, well, again, like I said, we have our different flows, we have our different needs. So it's important that we understand the need for distance, okay? So maintain your own routines as if it were, when you were going to work on the regular. So several tips, I guess, because I guess you've known for the past couple of days some of my colleagues, and they've had some wonderful sessions. So a lot of this has already been touched on. So I'm just going to give maybe I'm just going to go over it really quick, and other things where I may have some more of an idea, I will let you know and give some more information on that. So like I said, it's important to have a designated workspace. And in that workspace, set some boundaries, whether they be physical or virtual, because you want to minimize your distractions. Now, did you know that for every distraction, it takes approximately, on average, 23 minutes to regain your focus? That's right. And the more distractions that we get, we start to form a habit of self-interrupting. And we actually self-interrupt ourselves on average of 3.5 times per minute. So you do the math when it comes to minimizing your distractions. So whether it means closing a door or putting on headphones, whatever it is that you need to shut out the outside, turn off your phones, or your notifications on your phones, on your iPads, even on your laptop. Okay. The other thing, like I said, maintain your separate routines. try to stick to what it was that you were doing even before you were confined together, so that you don't feel like, walking around your pajamas the whole day. Try and dress every now and then, even if it's just the top half. uh, but even though in your routines, it's important that you have breaks. Just make sure that you put the breaks in. Another nice thing, maybe if you can kind of have them coordinate with your spouse and your partner so that you can have those breaks and have those times together. And lastly, try to maintain some contact with your colleagues. Even though you cannot be with them on the regular and meet them at the water cooler, you still have phone calls, you have Zoom. So try to maintain that sense of work aura. Yeah. On the planning part of the productivity, well, as you plan your day, right, make sure that you manage your time. Okay, don't let time run away with you. Leave nothing to chance. Use your time strategically and efficiently. I mean, that kind of goes without saying. And identify and anticipate your obstacles. What do I mean by that? There are situations where, if you know that there's going to be a call or your spouse is going to have a call at 2 p.m., try not to, that it will interfere with you. Make sure that you are not in the same space where that call is going to take place. Or, if in the event that you have children, make sure that when those calls or those meetings are scheduled, that there's something to keep them occupied. So now when there are kids, listen, I sympathize with you. I consider myself fortunate that, my daughter is all grown and she has left. But yeah, I can imagine what it's like. So I have a couple of little tips that I found. And so create a workspace for them. All right. I found some images online, and I will, if you want, I will share them with you later on. There's plenty of help online. Have a workspace, create a work and a play schedule to keep them occupied. A routine that they too can adhere to, just like you, and also set the same kind of boundaries, for them as well as for yourself. If possible at all, try to avoid having meetings, during the times when the kids are not busy. Another thing, a tip that I picked up that I thought was really helpful was have an arrangement with your partner as to who's going to be the first responder in terms of kiddie emergencies, and either for that day or for the week, and whatever you decide upon, make sure that you rotate. Okay. Sometimes, I can understand it can probably be pretty hectic and difficult to keep, work and life in that balance. But then maybe it might be an idea to schedule calls and meetings during kiddie nap time, or when they're busy doing their own schoolwork, if at all possible. And in the odd instance where both parents have calls and meetings scheduled at the exact same time, you know what? We have virtual spaces and assistants, and how should I say this? We have tools at our disposal. Maybe we can call grandma or grandpa to tell a story, or there are online virtual storytellers. But anyway, something that will be able to keep the kids entertained for that half hour or for an hour, or at least until the first one of you is available again to get back to it. So these some of these ideas I found on this site, which is www.dayswithgray.com. They are full of great ideas and tips. Now for your sanity. Yeah, look, I mentioned it several times before. We're under the same roof, and it doesn't matter whether you live in a studio apartment, a condo, or a big old 3-bedroom house. You are stuck with someone, and individual, and eventually and inevitably, you're going to get something that is what I like to call under-foot-itis. Yes, I made up this word. And it is basically the undesired and inopportune crossing of trails, which has only been made worse because of the heightened stress, the anxiety, and a sense of overwhelm. So how can we limit this? Well, since we can't confine anybody to a specific space all day, it is important that you schedule some time for yourself. Have some alone time, spend some time to get your mind right, get it under control for any of those automatic negative thoughts that may arise. Meditate if you have to, or maybe go out for a walk and exercise, or maybe just listen to some music or read a good book if time allows. Again, if the kids are busy, if there are kids involved, maybe you can alternate their nap time for one time using their nap time to work, and the other time you use the nap time for you to take some time for yourself. But on the other side, it is also important that you factor in some together time. Okay, maybe you should spend, it has been recommended that you spend at least 1/2 an hour a day connecting with each other. And it may not sound like a whole lot, but by now with your busy schedules, you try and find 1/2 an hour of uninterrupted time, and you will see that 1/2 an hour is actually a rough minimum to get to in the first place. But try to get at least 1/2 an hour per day. Of those half hours, I guess maybe you can, like I said earlier, you can factor in the breaks that you have during the day, but maybe you can also just have mini dates. I do want to say though, if you have those little breaks during the day, I would recommend you try to avoid being spontaneous, which I know doesn't sound very romantic, but I'll tell you what, after 3 weeks in the same house, running on separate schedules, the last thing I want to do when my wife is right in the middle of a busy call, trying to be spontaneously romantic. So at least during the day, try to avoid that. However, you can plan to have like mini indoor dates, where you would cook a special meal, or make a playlist and have a night out dancing, or sit down and watch a movie. But anyways, just literally is as if it were a date. Okay. Now, for the larger irritable issues, I'd like to say, try not to take everything personal. Okay. It gets really easy. But just to remember that the people that you are dealing with, whatever they say actually is just a projection of their own reality. Okay. And although it's very easy for us because we think we know the other person, try hard not to make assumptions. Okay. Ask questions if you're not sure. And for yourself, make sure that you express what it is that you really want. And when you do that, make sure you communicate clearly, because you don't want to cause any misunderstandings, and diffuses are going to be a lot shorter. So we want to try to avoid, having drama. Because remember, they are dealing with their own uncertainty, and their behavior, is nothing more than a reaction and external representation of what is going on internally with them. For yourself, try to mind your words, okay? Try to avoid using words such as always and never and all the time, because basically what they do, they're not really factual, and all you're telling your partner is that they can't do anything right. And before long, the frustration rises, and you get that hand thrown up in the air. Well, you know what? I'm not even going to bother, which is not really conducive for your living situations as it is. Also, ask a question. Don't just expect someone to do anything. Another thing is, be sure to hold yourself accountable, all right? Admit when you make a mistake or when you're wrong, and accept responsibility for your own personal behavior. You are not the only one that has a gripe. So before you're about to start picking a fight, just remember that that other person may have a list of gripes and complaints about you as well, all right? So it might be wiser to use positive reinforcement instead of criticism to get your point across. Pick your battles ask yourself, is this the time to have this battle? Or is it time to just use a disruptor and take some time to walk away, take a deep breath? Or maybe you just have to use exercise, grace, and forgiveness. And lastly, when you have your problems, try to solve as many of them for yourself. For instance, if there's a lot of background noise going on, instead of complaining to your partner or spouse about the noise, maybe you can just get up yourself, if it's possible, and go to another room. And the more you can solve your own problems and your own irritations without involving the other partner, the smoother the ride can and will be. All right. And there are two kinds of people basically that are going around. Those are the ones that need to be engaged for their own emotional balance. And they're the ones that require space. They've got this thing and they can self-regulate. So there's a difference between knowing when to crowd someone or to back away. It's important to know which one your spouse or your partner is. And if you understand, the sooner you understand that, the easier it will be for you to understand how to interact with them under these conditions. All right. And lastly, know the difference between aggressive and being assertive. And I saw this quote the other day and I thought that was fitting. It's like, if somebody tells you that you hurt them, you don't get to decide that you didn't. Okay. And lastly, stay connected. Okay, it's called social isolation, but we're not shut off from the world. You have your contacts, you have your family, you have your own friends. Spend time with them as well. Okay, it helps with your sanity. And while you are stuck under the same roof with someone that you love, but sometimes you wish you were alone, just remember you are not alone, because there are people that actually go through this by themselves. And depression is real. So when you exercise your gratitude, remember that you are stuck with someone, but you are stuck in your home. Okay. So when you go through those exercises, just remember the things that you have control over. Okay, you have control over how much time you smile. You can control your exercise. You can control the way you eat. You can control your attitude. You can control how many times you say, I love you. You can control how many times you say thank you. And on that note, I'm going to say thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me tell you what people are already commenting on as we give. Thank you. This is the end of our formal section, and now we're opening it up to Q&A. Q&A is when you basically have Alex, have the chance to have Alex be your coach. So ask any questions that you want. I'm not going to read off your name, but ask anything that's about, I really love the people I'm with, but I just feel like I want to. So any of those kinds of questions, ask them now. This is your chance. And as you're typing your question either into the Q&A or the chat, I'll be looking everywhere. Here are things that, Alex, that people have been putting into the chat while you're talking. First of all, everyone's loving under-foot-itis. We want to see a big, broad article about that, about under-foot-itis. And what else? Oh, I just cracked up when you said managing, I think you called it managing the big irritabilities. I'm sure there are little ones, but here are the big ones, and you need to manage those too. Yeah, it's just very direct. Yeah. So as people are typing in questions, one other question we often ask at the end, and I have a question, is what are you taking away? What is something from here that just nudged you a little bit into thinking, oh, I should try that more. I should do that a little more. What are you taking away as an action you can take? Not as an action your spouse can take or as an action your kids can take, but what Alex said, controlling what you can control. So please let us know some actions that you are taking away that you can take. We're already getting some, but creating a workspace for the kids, both time and boundaries and the actual physical space. Okay, my question to you. I agree with what you're saying. This sounds right. This sounds good. Sometimes in the moment and when things are back to back, this is ridiculously hard. So all of these things, just scheduling in the break with the kids when the kids decide they want a different break than the one you scheduled in, or being kind when you don't feel so kind. So what do you do when everything that you have said today is super hard to do.
Okay, so like I said again, I you know, I can empathize with the rest of you who have small kids, because I remember vaguely what it was like, and I can only imagine what it must be like today. But again, uh, like you said, the kids have their own rhythm as well. We all have our own rhythms, and and if it gets to the point where
I remember.
Sorry about that.
yeah, it's okay. So if it gets to the point where you know, everything shifts to be overwhelmed, always remember, don't try to fix the impossible. You fix what you can control. And what you can control is the way you are reacting to the situation. And if it means that you have to pause and breathe for a minute and just not react, because there's always going to be that instant, you know, that reaction moment, as opposed to that responding moment. And there are a lot of things, there are a lot of techniques and you know, things that one can do. But the most immediate thing that you can do right away that requires nothing extra, stop and take a breath. That alone will do so much more, because it changes everything. It's a disruptor of the flow of emotions. I think I lost you.
And we've all heard stories online, or maybe have had this happen to us, where in order to take a break, we may need to step away or go to our bedroom for a moment and close the door, or walk around the backyard for 30 seconds. But there are ways that we may need to walk away to take that break.
But that first immediate, right then and there, that requires no other action from anything else, is just stop and take a breath.
Thank you. Here's a question that's come up. Somebody is asking, Alex, can you double click on that? Give a little more info on what do you do to resolve hurt feelings? So if there are hurt feelings, what process should you go through?
Hurt feelings, it's a two-way thing. On the one end, it is the person that caused the feelings to be hurt. And on the other side, there is the person who received that, and they for whatever reason, the way that they interpreted what was said caused the feelings to be, was interpreted into hurt feelings. Now, there are two things that could have happened. It could have been done totally, you know, oblivious, because as a man, I know that we can be somewhat of a bull in the china shop every now and then, not intentionally, but you know what, we're big and all these glass things around, it's kind of hard to maneuver around there. So we will bump into a case every now and then and accidentally knock it over. Now, here's the thing that I always tell people. If I do it and it happens and you did not tell me anything about it, I'm just merely going about my way and I keep on doing it. However, if you say, hey, listen, Alex, do you mind, like, when you're walking with your big hoofs, could you just maybe like tiptoe a little bit and be a little bit more careful around? So what has happened now, the point has been made. Now, two things can happen. Now I am aware of it and I can say, oh yeah, well, whatever, and either forget about it and just go ahead and do it anyway, or just don't care. At this point now, you who asked me can say, well, either he doesn't care about my feelings, or maybe he didn't hear me correctly the first time. Okay, so, and I'm just using this as an analogy, but in essence, it has to come down to being able to express that whatever it was that hurt, make sure that the person who did the hurting understands that this behavior, this action caused the hurt. And by the same token, the one who caused it needs to understand that, okay, well, you know what, if I do this, this is how this is interpreted. Even though I didn't mean it to be interpreted that way, but now that I know that this is how they react to this, and take that into consideration.
And look, even in giving that advice, you're saying, I don't know if it helped. I'll ask, did that help? but even in giving that advice, I hear you doing what Marshall Goldsmith, a famous coach, says, feed forward. You're not saying, hey, Alex, you did this and it was awful and it was terrible, but the next time you do this, this is how it resulted in me on my conference call when they were stomping in the room outside the door. The next time, could you? So it's about that feedback is not about things that you can't change, but it's about that kind of thing in the future.
That's right.
Which of these things has been hard for you yourself to take on and take your own advice?
Okay, so
We're broadcasting to everyone, but the one person isn't right next to you.
so because as a coach, I've been working remotely from home, but my wife's position also allows her to work from home or from the office. And on the occasions that we've been home, there was always, that in the back of my head that, if anything, one of us could get up and go to the coffee shop and do some work, if anything. This has all changed. So it was really important, that conversation that we had in the beginning, that we laid down the ground rules. This is what I need to be able to focus and concentrate. When you do this, this disturbs me. I made a joke once that, I lost weight because my wife is strategically positioned right next to the refrigerator with her on the table there, and she's working. So I can't really, and she doesn't like it when she has her conference calls that I go sneaking past to the kitchen. So, that has kind of helped slow me down. But because you've had these things out, you know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing worse than, somebody's passing by and you snap at them because, their intention wasn't, to disturb you or just to disrupt you, but they just happen to do so. So therefore you can avoid that by just having these conversations, having as much ground rules as possible. And again, we are all human. When we have a rough day, sometimes things don't go as planned. So there has to be a bit of a understanding and leeway given.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that expectations discussion, that can happen at the beginning of our lockdown. But if something happens, it can happen in week 2 and week 3. That's what you're saying. You just need to revisit and make sure everyone's okay.
This is where that communication part that I said, which is that safe space where you can sit and just have that conversation, and express what has changed. And because it's a dynamic situation, we are stuck here, and it's no 2 days are the same.
Yeah.
No 2 hours are the same.
But they seem the same. Sometimes they seem the same.
They seem the same, and that's the thing, because we think it feels the same. We feel that everything else is the same, but because we are two different individuals on 2 different cycles,
Yeah.
it doesn't necessarily mean they're always in sync.
I'm going to summarize the 3 words that you've said, which are sanity. Was that the first one? No, that was the third one. Survival, productivity, and sanity. And just focus on those and keep thinking, look, how do I do my survival? How do I do my productivity respectfully with other people in my home? And how do I do my sanity for myself? Thank you so much, Alex. Thank you so much.
All right. The pleasure's all mine.
All the best, everyone. See you again tomorrow, 11 a.m. Pacific. All the best. Thank you. Everyone's sending us a lot of thank yous. Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Yeah.